The GPS kept rerouting me through back roads because of the storm, and every red light felt like a personal insult. I hated being late, especially on Christmas night. Jason had texted me 3 times in the last hour, not to ask if I was okay driving in the snow, but to bitch about the roast getting cold. Typical. By the time I pulled into the driveway of our Greenwich Colonial, my knuckles were white from gripping the steering wheel. The house was lit up like a damn runway, which meant my parents had arrived. Great. Just what I needed after a 14-hour day in the city. I pushed through the front door, shaking snow out of my hair. The heat hit me first, then the noise. My mother was laughing at something in the kitchen, and I could hear the low timbre of my father's voice over the clatter of dishes. But there was another sound, a high-pitched, syrupy giggle that didn't belong. Chloe, what the hell was his assistant doing here? Look who finally decided to show up, Jason said, not even looking up from the tumbler of bourbon in his hand. He was leaning against the archway between the living room and the hall, looking infuriatingly pleased with himself. His tie was loose. His hair was messier than when he'd left for work that morning, and his shirt collar was crooked. He looked disheveled, like he'd been rolling around on the floor or in bed. I was stuck on I-95 for 40 minutes. Jason, I snapped, kicking off my heels. Why is Chloe here? And why does it smell like a cheap perfume factory exploded in here? He waved a hand dismissively. Relax, Bree. It's Christmas. Chloe had a bit too much to drink at the office party earlier. Roads were getting bad, so I told her she could crash here. I stared at him. We have a guest room, and my parents are literally down the hall. Why is she still here? Jason took a slow sip of his drink, his eyes narrowing. Yeah, about that. Your dad insisted he'd take the couch. Said he didn't want to put us out. So, I figured Chloe could take the master. You know, since it's bigger and all. The air went out of my lungs. I actually took a step back. You put her in our bed. What's the big deal? He asked, his voice dropping to that condescending whisper he used when he wanted to make me feel like I was crazy. It's just a mattress. Don't start with your drama tonight. Bree, not in front of your parents. We'll change the sheets tomorrow. I felt my blood turn to ice. I shoved past him, taking the stairs 2 at a time. I could hear him calling after me. Something about ruining the evening. But I didn't care. I threw open the door to our bedroom. The sight stopped me cold. There she was, Chloe Reed, 26 years old, blonde, bottle-shaped, and currently wearing my favorite ivory silk sleep set, the one Jason had bought me for our anniversary. She was spread out diagonally across the bed, like a starfish, one leg dangling off the side, snoring softly. On the nightstand, my jewelry box was open. My grandmother's pearls were draped over the edge, next to an empty wine glass stained with lipstick. I didn't scream. I wanted to, but I didn't. I walked over, grabbed the glass, and walked back downstairs. Jason was still in the hallway, checking his phone. When he saw the glass in my hand, his smirk faltered. Is this a joke to you? I asked, holding the glass up. She's wearing my clothes. Jason, in my bed, while my parents are in the next room. He sighed, putting his phone away. Lower your voice. Would you? You're going to wake her up. Look, Chloe's had a rough quarter. She's a hard worker, and she just needed a place to land. Your dad was cool with the arrangement, so why are you making it weird? My dad. I scoffed. You talked to my dad about this? Briefly, he said, reaching for the glass. I pulled it away. He said it was fine. He's a reasonable man. Unlike you. Maybe if you weren't always working, you'd understand the importance of hospitality. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Hospitality? You let your assistant sleep in our marital bed while we host my family for Christmas. That's not hospitality. Jason, that's a fucking slap in the face. He stepped closer, his bourbon breath hot on my cheek. Watch your mouth. Brianna, You always do this. You take everything I do and twist it into some slight against you. It's exhausting. Go play nice with your folks. I'll deal with Sleeping Beauty upstairs. Or don't you want to explain to your mother why her precious son-in-law is sleeping on the floor?" I was about to tell him exactly where he could sleep when a voice cut through the tension. Low, gravelly, and completely devoid of emotion. "Bree, close the door." I turned. My father, Liam Callahan, was standing at the entrance of the living room. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Jason. He held a glass of water, not whiskey. Water, and he hadn't touched it. His eyes, the color of old steel, were fixed on Jason's neck. Jason forced a chuckle. "Liam, hey, mun, just telling Bree not to worry about the sleeping situation. Everything's under control." Liam didn't blink. He took a step forward, his heavy boots silent on the rug. He stopped a few feet from Jason, close enough that I could see the pulse ticking in Jason's throat. "That's not Chloe's perfume I smell upstairs," my father said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the space. "That's yours, Jason, and it smells like cheap bourbon and lies." The silence that followed was deafening. Jason's face went from red to a sickly pale. He opened his mouth, then closed it. My mother peeked out from the kitchen, her eyes wide. Even Chloe's rhythmic snoring seemed to pause for a beat. Jason cleared his throat, trying to recover. "Mr. Callahan, with all due respect, it's been a long night. Maybe you should sit down. Have a drink. Let us handle the domestic details." Liam finally looked at me. He gave a slight shake of his head, a warning. "Don't engage." Then he looked back at Jason. "I haven't had a drink in 10 years, boy, and I don't need one to know when something's rotten." He paused, letting the words hang. "You brought a liar into my daughter's house. On Christmas, put her in my daughter's bed. You got a death wish, or are you just that stupid?" Jason's hand tightened around his tumbler. "This is my house, Liam. My rules. Bree's overreacting. Chloe's just a guest." "A guest?" Liam repeated. It wasn't a question. It was a dismissal. He turned to me, his expression softening just a fraction. "Bree, kitchen. Now." I didn't argue. I brushed past Jason, who was vibrating with suppressed rage. As I passed, I heard him hiss under his breath. "Your old man needs to learn his place." I stopped. Slowly, I turned back. "Say that again," I said, my voice trembling. "Say it louder so my mother can hear how much of a gentleman you are." Jason opened his mouth, but Liam cut in. "Ignore him, Bree. He's not worth the air." He looked at Jason, his stare like a physical weight. "Keep talking. So, see where it gets you. I spent 30 years in the NYPD. I've seen guys like you before. You think you're slick, but you leave tracks everywhere. And right now, you're leaving them on my daughter's sheets." Jason's bravado cracked. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything." Liam interrupted. He finally took a sip of his water. "I am stating facts. Fact 1, you're drunk. Fact 2, you're lying. Fact 3, you just made a very big mistake. And fact 4. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried better than a shout. "Fact 4 is that I'm still deciding if I call the cops tonight or wait until morning. Guess which one pisses off your mother more." Jason's eyes widened. He looked toward the kitchen where Eleanor Davison, his mother, was humming along to a Christmas carol. If she found out about this, about Chloe, about the scene, she'd have a fit. Worse, she'd blame Jason for the embarrassment. "You wouldn't." Jason breathed. Liam raised an eyebrow. "Try me." I stood there, caught between the urge to cry and the urge to laugh. This wasn't how Christmas was supposed to go. But as I looked at my father, retired, calm, utterly unshakable, I realized something. Jason wasn't scared of me. He wasn't even scared of my mother. but he was terrified of Liam Callahan. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone in this fight. "Dad," I said quietly, "let's just get through dinner." Liam nodded once. He turned back to Jason, his expression hardening again. "One wrong move, Jason. One. And I'll make sure everyone in Greenwich knows exactly what kind of man you really are. Understood?" Jason swallowed hard and gave a stiff nod. Liam walked past him toward the kitchen, pausing only to glance back at me. "Come on, kid. Your mother's burning the rolls." As I followed him, I heard Jason mutter behind me, "This isn't over. Bree." I didn't look back. "Oh, it's over, Jason," I whispered to myself. "You just don't know it yet." I entered the kitchen to find my mother fussing over a tray of slightly charred Parker House rolls. She looked up, her eyes searching mine. "Everything okay out there?" I forced a smile. Just Jason being Jason. Liam moved to the sink, pouring out his glass of water. He didn't say anything else about the confrontation, but as he washed his hands, I saw him glance at the window above the sink. Outside, the snow was coming down harder now, blanketing the world in white. But inside, the temperature had dropped to freezing. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice light, "can you grab the cranberry sauce? I think it's in the pantry." She bustled off, leaving me alone with my father for a moment. He dried his hands slowly, meticulously, then looked at me in the reflection of the window. "Don't let him see you sweat, Bree," he murmured, "and don't eat anything he touches. I don't trust his hands tonight." I blinked. "Dad." "He's hiding something," Liam said, cutting me off. "And it ain't just that girl upstairs. Keep your eyes open. And your phone charged." Before I could ask what he meant, my mother returned with the sauce, and the moment broke. But the seed was planted. Jason was hiding something, and my father knew it. As we moved toward the dining room, I caught Jason watching us from the hallway. His usual sneer was gone, replaced by something colder, more calculating, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. Good, I thought. Let him be afraid, because after tonight, nothing would ever be the same. We sat down to dinner. Jason tried to steer the conversation toward the markets, talking about year-end bonuses and his brilliant investments. My mother asked about Chloe, and Jason smoothly lied, saying she'd turned in early due to exhaustion. Liam said nothing, methodically carving the turkey. But I noticed he didn't touch the wine Jason had poured for him. Instead, he drank from a fresh glass of water. Halfway through the meal, Jason reached across the table to grab the salt, his sleeve brushing against my arm. I flinched. Liam's hand paused mid-cut. He looked at Jason's wrist, at the faint, angry red mark just above his cuff. "Cut yourself shaving, Jason?" Liam asked, his tone deceptively casual. Jason yanked his arm back, pulling the sleeve down. "Something like that," he muttered. Liam didn't press. He just went back to his turkey. But I saw the look he exchanged with me, a look that said, "See? Tracks." I couldn't finish my food. Every time Jason opened his mouth, I heard him defending Chloe. I saw her in my bed. I smelled that perfume. And I felt my father's quiet fury simmering beside me. By the time dessert was served, a store-bought pie Eleanor had brought. Because God forbid Jason lift a finger, I was done. "I'm tired," I announced, pushing back my chair. "I think I'll turn in." Jason looked up, startled. "Now, but we haven't had coffee." "I've had enough, Jason," I said, meeting his gaze. "More than enough." I excused myself and headed upstairs. I didn't go to the master bedroom. I couldn't. Instead, I went to the guest room across the hall. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the closed door of my own room. Through the thin walls, I could hear muffled voices, Jason, and then my father's low rumble. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Jason was agitated. Liam was not. After a while, the voices stopped. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Then, silence. I lay back on the bed, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. My phone buzzed. A text from Jason. Don't make this a thing. Bree, be smart. Think about the house. Think about us. I deleted it without replying. A minute later, another text. This one from an unknown number. Kid, lock your door. And don't come out until morning. Dad. I did as he said. I locked the door and curled up under the covers, listening to the wind howl outside. Somewhere in the house, Chloe snored on. Somewhere else, Jason stewed. And downstairs, my father sat in the dark, keeping watch. Christmas night, the start of the longest winter of my life. And it was only just beginning. I didn't sleep. Every creak of the heating system sounded like footsteps. Around 6 a.m. I gave up and crept downstairs. The house was freezing. Jason must have killed the thermostat to save a buck. I found my father in the kitchen, already dressed, sitting at the island with a legal pad and a pen. He was writing in that tiny, precise script of his, the one he used for evidence logs. Morning. I rasped. He didn't look up. Coffee's on. Cream's in the fridge. Jason's still asleep. So's the blonde. I poured the coffee. Black. You've been up all night? Since 4. He tapped the pad. Wrote down everything he said yesterday. Inconsistencies are already stacking up. I sank onto the stool next to him. Dad, you can't just investigate him. He's my husband. He finally looked at me. His eyes bloodshot but sharp. He's a suspect. Bree. And you're my daughter. There's a difference. He slid the pad over. Read it. I scanned the notes. Claimed Chloe arrived at 8 p.m. Neighbor security light comes on at motion. Saw her car at 10:15. Claimed she's just an intern. Her LinkedIn says VP of Operations. Claimed he paid for dinner. Credit card statement on counter shows $412 at per se. 1 entree. 2 glasses of wine. He hates lamb. My stomach turned. He took her to per se on Christmas Eve. Expensive taste for an intern. Dad muttered. And he used the Amex Black, the one linked to your joint account, right? I nodded, feeling sick. I haven't checked the statements in weeks. He said he had it handled. He's handling it. All right. Straight into the ground. He took the pad back. Here's the kicker. Around midnight, I heard him on the phone, whispering, mention the ledger and Monday's deadline. Sound familiar? I shook my head. Jason doesn't keep ledgers. It's all digital. Exactly. Dad's pen tapped the paper, which means he's hiding something analog. Something he doesn't want backed up to the cloud. Before I could respond, we heard footsteps. Jason appeared in the doorway, wearing sweatpants and a scowl. He looked from me to Dad, then at the legal pad. What the hell is this? He asked, his voice thick with sleep and suspicion. Morning. Jason. Dad said evenly. Just making notes. Bree's memory isn't what it used to be. Thought I'd help her remember the evening. Jason's jaw tightened. Put it away. Old man. That's private. So's my daughter's bed. Dad replied, his tone never changing. But here we are. Jason ignored him, turning to me. Bree, can I talk to you? Alone? Anything you have to say to her, you can say in front of me, Dad said before I could answer. Jason's eyes narrowed. This is between me and my wife. And this is my daughter's house. Dad countered. And you're in my kitchen. So, it's between us 3 now. Jason huffed and walked to the coffee maker. Fine. Look, about last night. I'm sorry if things got heated, but Chloe's leaving soon, and we need to move past this. For the family. Move past her sleeping in our bed? I asked. Past you lying about why she was here? I didn't lie. Jason snapped. I omitted. There's a difference. And she's going through a divorce. Okay. I was being a good boss. A good friend. Dad snorted. A good friend who wears your wife's lingerie and sleeps in her spot? Must be some friendship. Jason spun around, jabbing a finger at Dad. You know what? I'm sick of your attitude. You come into my house, treat me like a criminal, and act like you run the place. You're a guest here. Callahan, act like it. Dad didn't move, didn't blink. Your house? He leaned forward slightly. Funny. Last I checked, the deed was in Bree's name. She bought it with the proceeds from her firm before you two even met. You just pay the utilities and pretend you own the world. Jason's face flushed purple. That's not. It is. Dad interrupted. I read the deed. Public record. And I also read the tax filings. Bree claims this as her primary residence. You claim the apartment in the city, which makes this her house. Jason, not yours. And you're the guest, one who's currently wearing out his welcome. The silence was brutal. Jason looked like he'd been slapped. I'd never heard Dad lay it out so bluntly. But it was true. I'd bought the house. Jason had just moved in and decorated it like it was his trophy. Bree, Jason said, his voice shaking. Tell him to back off. I looked at my father, then at Jason. He's not wrong. Jay, this is my house. Jason's nostrils flared. For a second, I thought he might hit me. But then Chloe appeared in the hallway, wrapped in my robe, rubbing her eyes. Jason? She mumbled. Who's yelling? Jason's anger evaporated instantly, replaced by a sickeningly sweet smile. No one. Babe, go back to bed. We'll talk later. Babe, I nearly choked. Dad's hand landed on my forearm, a silent warning to stay put. Chloe shuffled closer, eyeing Dad warily. Mr. Callahan, Merry Christmas. It was, Dad said dryly, until you showed up. Chloe's smile faltered. I'm sorry if I caused any trouble. Jason was just being kind, letting me stay since the roads were bad. Kind, Dad repeated. He set his pen down. Interesting choice of words. Kind like when you worked at Citibank, before you joined Jason's firm? Chloe blinked. Yeah, yes. I was in consumer finance there for 2 years. Dad tilted his head. Citibank dissolved their entire consumer finance division in 2019. Massive layoffs. Whole floors emptied. You must have missed the memo while you were working there. Chloe's face drained of color. Jason stepped in quickly. Liam, enough. Leave her alone. She's had a long night. I'm sure she has, Dad said, his eyes never leaving Chloe. Sleeping in other people's beds will do that to you. But here's what I don't get. Chloe, if you were so exhausted, why were you on the phone at 2 a.m.? I heard you, clear as day, talking about the wire and needing more time. Sounds less like a woman going through a divorce and more like someone waiting on a transaction. Jason went rigid. You were eavesdropping. I was awake. Dad corrected. There's a difference. And I heard enough to know that whatever's going on here isn't just a workplace fling. It's something else. Something involving money. Large amounts of it. Jason laughed. But it was hollow. You're delusional. Paranoid. You've been retired too long. Callahan, you're seeing ghosts. Am I? Dad pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. This is a partial plate number I wrote down last night. The car Chloe arrived in. I ran it this morning. Used an old buddy at the DMV. Registered to a holding company in Delaware. No listed owners. But the address? It's the same building where your firm leases office space. Jason. Suite 1400. Your floor. Jason's composure shattered. You ran her plates? You can't do that. That's illegal. So's embezzlement. Dad shot back. And fraud. And probably a dozen other things you're mixed up in. But sure, focus on the vehicle registration. Chloe started crying. Real tears. Not the manipulative kind from last night. Jason, I told you this was a bad idea. I told you your father-in-law was a cop. Father-in-law, she said it like a curse. Jason grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the stairs. Shut up. Chloe, Just shut up and pack your shit. Dad didn't stop them. He just watched, his expression unreadable. Once they were gone, he turned back to me. You hearing this, Bree? I nodded, numb. He's in trouble, isn't he? Deep, Dad said. And he's dragged her down with him. That car, the holding company, that's classic money laundering 101. Hide the assets, obscure the ownership, move the cash, and he's doing it right under your nose. Why? I whispered. Why would he risk everything? Because he's greedy, Dad said simply. And stupid. Greedy men do stupid things. And stupid men get caught. He paused. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I stared at the staircase. I could hear Jason yelling at Chloe upstairs. Something about covering their tracks and the safe deposit box. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't just about a mistress anymore. This was about my life, my future, my freedom. I need to see the accounts, I said, my voice steadying. All of them. The business ones, the personal ones, everything. Dad nodded, approval flickering in his eyes. Good, but not here. Not now. He'll wipe them clean the second he suspects. We wait. Let him think he's still in control. Then we strike. Strike how? We get ahead of him, Dad said. Monday morning. First thing. We walk into that bank. You, me, and a forensic accountant I know from the city. We freeze everything before he can move it, and then we let the chips fall. And if he finds out, Dad's gaze hardened. He won't, because I'll be watching him. And Bree? He's going to try to talk his way out of this. He's going to lie, beg, threaten. Don't listen. Watch his hands. Liars always give themselves away with their hands. As if on cue, Jason stormed back into the kitchen. Alone. His hair was wild, his chest heaving. He pointed a finger at me. Bree, we need to talk. Now. Downstairs. Chloe's leaving. And we need to get our story straight before your father poisons you against me completely. Dad stood up slowly. There's no story. Jason, there's the truth. And you're drowning in it. Jason ignored him, grabbing my arm. Get up. Now. I didn't move. I looked up at him. Really looked at him. Maybe for the first time. The man I'd married was gone. In his place was a desperate, lying stranger. Take your hand off me, Jason, I said quietly. He blinked, surprised by my tone. Then his grip tightened. Don't test me, Bree. I'm warning you. Dad moved. Fussed. 1 second, he was by the island. The next, his hand was clamped around Jason's wrist, squeezing until Jason gasped and released me. She said. Dad growled, his voice low and lethal. Take your hand off her. Jason stumbled back, cradling his wrist. You broke it. You fucking broke my wrist. It's not broken, Dad said dismissively, but it'll bruise. A reminder. Next time you touch her, I won't be so gentle. Jason looked from Dad to me, his eyes wild with hatred. You're both dead to me. Do you hear me? Dead. I'll take everything. The house, the cars, the accounts. You'll be nothing but a footnote in my divorce papers. Divorce? Dad smiled, and it was a chilling sight. Jason, son, you're not getting a divorce. You're getting a cell. And maybe a roommate named Carlos who doesn't like men who cheat on their wives and steal from their clients. Jason's mouth opened and closed like a fish. No words came out. Finally, he spun on his heel and stalked out of the kitchen, shouting for Chloe. Dad watched him go, then turned back to me. You okay? I nodded, though I was shaking. Yeah, I think so. Good. He picked up his legal pad. Because it's about to get worse. He's going to run. Or try to. And when he does, we need to be ready. He paused. One more thing. Check your phone. I sent you a contact. Mark Steele. He's a forensic accountant and a friend. Call him Monday. Tell him I sent you. And Bree, don't tell Jason. Don't tell Chloe. Don't tell anyone except your mother. And only that we're handling financial matters. Understood? I pulled out my phone, saw the contact. Understood. Good. Dad walked to the doorway, looking out toward the front of the house. And Bree? From here on out, assume every word out of his mouth is a lie, including I love you, especially that one. He left me then, standing alone in the kitchen. Outside, I heard a car engine start, Chloe's. I assumed. Jason's voice, muffled, shouting instructions. And then, the screech of tires on snow as they peeled out of the driveway. I sank onto the stool, my coffee long cold. My marriage was over. My husband was a thief. And my father? My father was preparing for war. I looked down at the legal pad Dad had left behind. On the last line, he'd written one sentence in his precise script. Track marks lead to the wolf. Don't become the sheep. I didn't know exactly what that meant yet, but I would. And when I did, Jason Davison was going to wish he'd never set foot in my bed. Or my life. They didn't come back. Not that night. Not by noon. Jason texted once, stay out of my office. This is bigger than you. Then nothing. Dad spent the morning on the landline, speaking in low tones to people named Ray and Lisa. When I asked who they were, he just said, old ghosts. I didn't push. I was too busy staring at the ceiling, replaying Chloe's face when Dad called out the Citibank lie. She wasn't just scared. She was cornered. Around 2 p.m. The power flickered. Snow was piling up against the windows, and the plows hadn't been through yet. Dad tossed me a flashlight. Basement. Check the breaker. And keep your eyes open. I hated the basement. It was Jason's domain, all server racks, filing cabinets, and that heavy steel safe he never let me near. The air was stale, smelling of dust and old paper. I flipped the breaker back on, then paused. One of the filing cabinets was slightly ajar. Jason was meticulous. He'd never leave it open. Inside, the folders were in chaos, tax documents scattered, bank statements crumpled. It looked like someone had been digging in a hurry. On top of the mess sat a slim silver laptop. Jason's personal one. The one he claimed was for trading algorithms and never let out of his sight. I picked it up. It was warm. He'd been down here recently, probably before he ran out with Chloe. I carried it upstairs. Dad was in the study, cleaning his old service revolver, a habit he'd never broken. He looked up as I set the laptop on the desk. Found it in the basement. I said, open. Dad grunted. He's sloppy when he's scared. He nudged the laptop toward me. Powered up. The screen lit up, demanding a password. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. Our wedding date. Wrong. My birthday. Wrong. I looked at Dad. It's not any of ours. Try hers. Dad said, not looking up from the gun. The blonde. Initials and numbers. Men like him are predictable. I hesitated, then typed CR 1212. Chloe Reed, December 12th. The enter key clicked. The desktop loaded. Dad set the revolver down. Told you. The desktop was a mess of icons, but one folder stood out, labeled simply LDG. I double-clicked. Inside were spreadsheets, dozens of them, dates going back 18 months, columns labeled inflow, outflow, client ID, offshore. The numbers were staggering, millions moving in and out, often on the same day, and the client IDs. I recognized some of them, high net worth clients from Jason's firm, people who'd trusted him with their retirement funds. Jesus, I whispered. He's moving their money. Keep going, Dad said. His voice was steady, but I saw his jaw tighten. Look for the patterns. I scrolled. Transfers to accounts in the Caymans, Switzerland, Belize, and withdrawals, cash, jewelry, real estate. One entry caught my eye. December 24th, $250,000, CR. Personal. Yesterday, Christmas Eve, $250,000. Withdrawn and marked for Chloe Reed's personal use. He bought her something. I said, my throat tight. Yesterday. Something expensive. Or he paid her off. Dad muttered. Look for the liabilities. What's he leveraged? I switched to another spreadsheet. Secured assets. Our house was listed, mortgage to the hilt. Segonia. Third lien. The cars. My jewelry. Even the furniture. Everything was collateral. And the totals, the math didn't add up. He'd borrowed millions more than he'd moved offshore. Dad, I said, my voice shaking. He's short. By almost 2 million. 2.4. Dad corrected. He leaned over, pointing at a red column. Margin call, due 12/27. Monday. That's why he was panicked. That's why Chloe was screaming about the wire. He's got until Monday to cover the margin call, or the whole house of cards collapses. I felt sick, so he stole from his clients to pay off his debts? And when that wasn't enough, he mortgaged everything we own? Worse, Dad said. He clicked on a PDF. It was a wire transfer confirmation. Final destinación, Banco de Bogotá. He's not just stealing, Bree. He's laundering. And that destination, that's cartel money. He's moving drug cash through his clients' accounts. I stared at the screen. The implications hitting me like a fist. He's going to prison. Long term. Dad agreed. And you're an accomplice unless we move fast. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Marcus. Yeah, it's Liam. I need you to pull the records on Davison Capital. All of them. Start with the offshore transfers from the last 48 hours. Yeah, I know it's Sunday. Make it happen. And Marcus, bring the UCC forms. We're freezing everything. He hung up, then looked at me. Call your mother. Tell her to stay at the hotel in Stamford. Don't come back here. And don't answer if Jason calls. I dialed Mom's cell, my hands trembling. She picked up on the second ring. Bree? Honey? Is everything okay? Your father's been so cryptic. Mom, listen to me. I cut in. Do not come back to the house. Pack a bag. Check into a hotel. And stay there until I call you. Jason's in trouble. Serious trouble. And I need you safe. Trouble? What kind of trouble? Bree, tell me. Financial trouble, I said, keeping it vague. The FBI might get involved. Just go. Please. I'll explain later. She was silent for a beat. Then, your father put you up to this, didn't he? Liam always was a worrier. Fine. I'll check into the Marriott. But you call me the second you know more. Understand? I will. Love you, Mom. Love you too, baby. Be careful. I hung up. Dad was already on the phone again, this time with a woman named Agent Ramirez. He spoke in clipped sentences, evidence secured, financials obtained, suspect fled with co-conspirator, request immediate pickup of assets. When he hung up, he looked at me. FBI is sending a car. They'll take the laptop, the files, everything. We'll give statements at the field office tomorrow. Tomorrow? I asked. What about tonight? Tonight, Dad said, picking up the revolver and sliding it into his waistband. We wait, and we watch. Because Jason's not going to run forever. He's going to come back. And when he does, he's going to want this laptop. As if on cue, headlights swept across the study window. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps on the porch. Dad motioned for me to stay behind the desk. He moved to the doorway, his hand on the gun. The front door burst open. Jason stormed in, his suit jacket gone, his shirt untucked, his face streaked with snow and what looked like dried blood. Chloe was right behind him, sobbing, clutching a designer bag. Where is it? Jason roared, spotting me in the study. Bree, give me the laptop. Now. Dad stepped into the hallway, blocking his path. Easy. Jason, you're trespassing. Jason's eyes bugged out when he saw Dad. You, get out of my way. This is between me and my wife. Wrong. Dad said calmly. This is between you and the federal government. And right now, you're obstructing justice. Chloe wailed. Jason, he knows. He knows everything. The accounts, the transfers, All of it. Jason backhanded her. Not hard, but enough to shut her up. Shut up. You stupid bitch. I told you not to talk. He turned back to Dad, his chest heaving. You don't know shit, old man. Those files are protected. Attorney-client privilege. There's no privilege for fraud. Dad interrupted. He pulled out a small digital recorder, the kind he used to use on stakeouts. And I've been recording since you walked in. So far, we've got conspiracy, obstruction, assault, and admitting to financial crimes. That's a good start. Jason lunged. Dad sidestepped, grabbing Jason's arm and twisting it behind his back in one smooth motion. Jason howled, crashing into the wall. Dad leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper only Jason could hear. I saw Jason's eyes widen in terror. You think this is about the money? Dad murmured. It's not. It's about my daughter. You put your whore in her bed. Jason, on Christmas. That's a level of disrespect I don't tolerate. And now I'm going to make sure you spend the rest of your life remembering that mistake. Jason struggled, but Dad's grip was like iron. Let me go. Bree, tell him to let me go. I'm your husband. I stood up, walking around the desk. I looked at Jason, really looked at him. The man I'd loved was gone. This was just a shell, a liar, a thief. You're not my husband anymore. Jason, I said quietly. You haven't been for a long time. Chloe collapsed on the floor, sobbing into her hands. It's over. Jason, it's all over. They're going to lock us up. Jason's struggles intensified, but it was useless. Dad had him pinned. You're going to regret this. Callahan, both of you. I'll see you. I'll take everything. You'll be living in a cardboard box. Funny, Dad said, because according to the ledgers, you already beat me to it. He nodded toward the window. Company's here. Blue and red lights flashed through the snow. 2 agents in dark coats approached the porch. Dad released Jason. Stepping back, Jason stumbled, then made a break for the stairs. One of the agents moved, intercepting him easily and slamming him against the wall. Jason Davison, the agent said, his voice flat. You're under arrest for securities fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent. I want my lawyer. Jason shrieked. I want my lawyer now. You can have a lawyer, the agent said, reading him his rights. But anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Chloe tried to run. The second agent caught her by the arm. Chloe Reed, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and money laundering. Their voices faded as they were led outside. Dad watched them go, then turned to me. You okay? I nodded, numb. Yeah, I think so. Good. He picked up the laptop, handing it to the agent at the door. Evidence. Agent Ramirez. Chain of custody starts now. Ramirez nodded, sealing the laptop in an evidence bag. We'll be in touch. Mr. Callahan. Mrs. Davison. She looked at me. We'll need you to come in tomorrow for a formal statement. But for tonight, you're free to go. Free. The word echoed in my head. I was free. Of Jason. Of the lies. Of the constant walking on eggshells. Dad put a hand on my shoulder. Come on, kid. Let's get out of here. Your mother's waiting. We walked out into the snow. The agents were loading Jason and Chloe into the back of a black SUV. Jason was still screaming, his face pressed against the glass. Chloe was silent, staring blankly ahead. As the SUV pulled away, Dad squeezed my shoulder. It's over, Bree. I looked up at him, at the man who'd protected me without hesitation, who'd seen the truth when I couldn't. Thank you, Dad. He didn't smile, just nodded. Don't thank me yet. We've still got the fallout to deal with. The press, the lawsuits, the divorce. But tonight, we sleep. We drove to the hotel in silence. Mom was waiting in the lobby, her eyes red but relieved. She hugged me tight, then Dad, and we went up to the room. I crawled into bed, exhausted, and for the first time in months, I slept without dreaming, but as I drifted off, I heard Dad's voice in my head. The last thing he'd said before I closed my eyes. Track marks lead to the wolf, but sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted. I didn't understand it then, but I would, because Jason Davison wasn't done, and neither was my father. The hotel room felt like a pressure cooker by morning. Mom was on the phone with her sister in Queens, keeping her voice low but urgent. Dad was at the little desk, flipping through a legal pad, his jaw set. I was scrolling through my phone. Timsy had already picked up the arrest, calling it a Greenwich gold digger scandal. Jason's face was plastered everywhere. So was Chloe's, and, inevitably, mine. Brianna Davison, the unsuspecting heiress. One headline read, or was she? My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost declined, but Dad nodded. Answer it. Speaker. I hit accept. Hello, Bree? It's Marcus Steele. The voice was crisp, professional. Liam gave me your number. I've been reviewing the preliminary files the FBI seized. It's worse than we thought. Dad leaned in. Walk us through it. Marcus. First, the good news. Marcus said, the FBI's RICO case is solid. Jason and Chloe are looking at decades. But the bad news? Jason's lawyers are already spinning. They're going to claim you were complicit, that you knew about the transfers, benefited from them, and helped hide the assets. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's insane. I didn't know anything. Of course you didn't, Marcus said, but they'll point to the joint accounts, the house deed, the fact that you're the primary on most of the credit lines. They'll say you turned a blind eye because you liked the lifestyle. Can they do that? Mom asked, her voice trembling. They can try. Dad cut in, but they'll fail. Marcus, tell her about the accounts. Right. Marcus continued. Liam asked me to audit the last 24 months. Here's the key. Every major transfer Jason made, the ones to the offshore accounts, the payments to Chloe, they all originated from accounts solely in Jason's name, or from corporate accounts where Bree's signature wasn't on file. Furthermore, the deposits into your joint accounts, they're all traceable to legitimate sources. Your design firm's earnings, dividends from your personal investments. Nothing ties Bree to the illicit funds. What about the house? I asked. It's mortgaged to the hilt. The mortgages are in Jason's name only. Marcus explained. He used the house as collateral without your knowledge or consent. Under Connecticut law, that's fraud against you, not by you. We'll need to file a separate civil suit to clear the liens. But criminally, you're in the clear. Provided what? I asked. Provided you don't talk to Jason, Marcus said, or his lawyers, or the press, and definitely not to the FBI without me present. They might try to rattle you. See if you'll slip up. Liam, you briefed her on the silent witness protocol? Dad grunted. She's ready. Silent witness? Mom asked. Means she says nothing unless I'm in the room. Dad clarified. Not a word. Not to the cops. Not to the reporters camped outside. Nod. Shake your head. But don't open your mouth. As if on cue, a knock came at the door. Dad was on his feet, hand near his waistband. Before I could move, he peered through the peephole, then relaxed slightly. It's Agent Ramirez. He opened the door. Ramirez stepped in, snow dusting her dark coat. She nodded at Dad, then at me. Mrs. Davison, sorry to interrupt. I need you to come to the field office. We have Jason in interview room 3. He's asking for you. I looked at Dad. He shook his head minutely. She's not available, he told Ramirez. Ramirez sighed. Liam, I get it, but he's lawyered up now. His attorney, Paul Kincaid, is pushing for a spousal privilege interview. If Bree talks to him alone, Kincaid will try to trap her into saying something that implies knowledge. We need her to sit in, with counsel, so we can document that she's cooperating but not implicated. Marcus is on his way. Dad said, he'll meet us there. Bree doesn't say a word until he's in the room. Understood? Ramirez nodded. Understood. Kincaid's already complaining about the delay. He's pulling my client's rights card. Screw his rights, Dad muttered. He turned to me. Get your coat. And remember, lips sealed. Let them talk. Let them lie. We've got the receipts. The FBI field office in New Haven was a maze of gray cubicles and fluorescent lights. Ramirez led us to a viewing room adjacent to Interrogation 3. Through the one-way glass, I saw Jason. He looked like hell, hair matted, suit wrinkled, circles under his eyes. Across from him sat a sharp-looking man in a charcoal suit, Paul Kincaid. No doubt. And next to Kincaid, Chloe, looking small and terrified in an orange jumpsuit. Kincaid was talking, his voice tinny through the speaker. So my client maintains that Mrs. Davison was fully aware of all financial transactions. She benefited directly from the lifestyle funded by these accounts. Therefore, she cannot testify against him without waiving privilege. Jason nodded vigorously. Tell them. Paul, tell them Bree knew. She picked out the watches. She approved the trips. Dad snorted softly. He's grasping at straws. Marcus Steele arrived then, a briefcase in hand. He nodded at Ramirez. Then at Dad. I've reviewed the initial discovery. Kincaid's playing a weak hand. Bree, when we go in there, you let me do the talking. If they ask you a direct question, you look at me. I'll answer for you. Got it? I nodded. My mouth felt like cotton. Ramirez opened the door. Let's go. The atmosphere in the interrogation room shifted the second we entered. Kincaid stood, smoothing his tie. Mrs. Davison, thank you for joining us. I'm Paul Kincaid. I represent your husband. I trust you've been advised of your rights? She has, Marcus said, stepping between me and Kincaid. I'm Marcus Steele, Mrs. Davison's counsel. Any questions for my client will be directed through me. Jason's eyes locked onto mine. Bree, baby, tell them you knew. About the accounts, the transfers, everything. It'll make this easier. I said nothing. I just looked at him. Kincaid leaned forward. Mrs. Davison, your husband states that you were present when he accessed the offshore accounts, that you suggested moving funds to Belize to avoid taxes. Is that true? Marcus answered before I could breathe. Objection. Leading. Speculative. And factually incorrect. Mrs. Davison was not present for any such conversations, nor did she suggest any illegal activity. She's lying, Chloe suddenly blurted, pointing at me. She knew. She had to know. Jason showed her the statements. He said she didn't care as long as the money kept coming. Dad's hand landed on my shoulder, a silent reminder. Don't react. Marcus turned to Chloe. Ms. Reed, your statement is noted. However, the electronic trail shows no access to those accounts from any device registered to Mrs. Davison. Furthermore, the signatures on the transfer authorizations are Jason's and yours, not Mrs. Davison's. Jason slammed his hand on the table. This is bullshit. Bree, stop letting them use you. Tell them the truth. We're in this together. Together? I finally found my voice. Quiet but clear. Jason, you put your mistress in our bed on Christmas. You mortgaged my house without my knowledge. You stole from your clients to buy her jewelry. How is that together? Kincaid held up a hand. Mrs. Davison, please, don't speculate. Jason, calm down. Mrs. Davison, my client maintains that the funds transferred to Ms. Reed were done so with your implicit approval, given your shared lifestyle. Marcus laughed a short, sharp sound. Implicit approval? Counselor, are you seriously arguing that a wife's mere existence constitutes consent to embezzlement and money laundering? That's not just a stretch. It's malpractice. Ramirez stepped in. Mr. Kincaid, we have the laptop. We have the ledgers. We have the recorded confession from Mr. Davison regarding the cartel connections. Spousal privilege won't shield him from that. And it certainly won't implicate Mrs. Davison. Jason's face twisted. You recorded me? You son of a bitch. He lunged at Dad, but the cuffs stopped him short. This is all your fault. Callahan, you and your cop tricks. I'll sue you into the ground. You'll do nothing, Dad said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. He walked to the table, leaning down until he was eye level with Jason. Because you're going to be disbarred, convicted, and forgotten. And Bree, she's going to walk out of here, rebuild her life, and never think of you again, except maybe to laugh at how pathetic you look right now. Jason spat at him. Dad didn't even flinch. The spit hit his shoulder, and he calmly wiped it off with a tissue. That's evidence, Dad told Ramirez. Assault on a federal officer. Add it to the list. Ramirez nodded, signaling the guard. Interview's over. Mr. Davison, you're done. As the guards hauled Jason to his feet, he twisted, looking back at me. For a second, the arrogance was gone. Just raw, animal panic. Bree, please don't let them do this. I love you. I met his gaze, unblinking. You don't love me, Jason. You love what I gave you, and now it's gone. They dragged him out. Chloe followed, sobbing quietly. Kincaid gathered his papers, avoiding eye contact. We'll be in touch. Steele, this isn't over. It is for today, Marcus replied. He turned to me. You did well. Don't say another word to anyone without me present, not even the press. Dad guided me out of the room, his hand firm on my back. As we walked down the hall, a reporter burst from a side door, camera flashing. Mrs. Davison, any comment on your husband's arrest? Did you know about the cartel money? Dad shielded me, pushing forward. No comment. Step back. We emerged into the cold afternoon. The snow had stopped, but the sky was heavy. Dad bundled me into the car, then slid in beside me. Marcus got in the front with the driver. They're going to hound you for weeks, Marcus said. My advice? Stay at a secure location. No social media. No statements. Let me handle the legal fallout. What about the house? I asked. The stuff Jason ruined? We'll inventory it, Marcus said. Document the damage. It'll be part of the asset forfeiture. The government will seize everything tied to the crimes. Your personal belongings, your grandmother's pearls, your clothing, your car, those are exempt. We'll retrieve them. And the bed? I asked, the image flashing in my mind. Dad glanced back at me. Burn it, or donate it. Never sleep in it again. I nodded. It sounded right. Burn it. As we drove away, I looked back at the federal building. Jason was in there, behind bars, his empire in ashes, and I was free. But the freedom felt hollow, because I knew, deep down, that Jason wasn't finished. Men like him didn't go down quietly. They lashed out. They lied. They waited. Dad, I said quietly, he's going to try something. From inside, Dad didn't look back. I know, which is why we don't stop watching. Not yet. He was right. The freeze had begun, but the thaw? That was going to take a lot longer. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I heard his voice again. Track marks lead to the wolf. But sometimes, the hunter becomes the hunted. I just hoped the hunter was ready. 3 days bled into a week. I stayed at a rented cottage in Westport, Dad's idea. Somewhere off the grid. Marcus handled the press, issuing one terse statement, Mrs. Davison is cooperating fully with authorities and will not be commenting further. The vultures circled, but they couldn't get to me. Jason was denied bail. The judge cited flight risk and obstruction. Chloe flipped, agreeing to testify against him in exchange for a reduced sentence. It should have felt like victory. It didn't. It felt like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Dad spent his days on the phone or hunched over maps and financial printouts he'd pinned to the cottage walls. He barely slept. On the 8th night, he woke me around 2 a.m. "Get dressed," he said, tossing me a hoodie. "We're going for a drive." "Where?" I asked, pulling on jeans. "New Haven," he said. "Federal holding. Agent Ramirez called." Jason's lawyer filed a motion, demanding a private spousal visit. Claims he has exculpatory evidence only you can verify. I froze. He's trying to trap me. He's trying. Dad agreed. But Ramirez shut him down. The visit's on. Monitored. Recorded. And I'll be in the room. He paused, his eyes hard in the dim light. But here's the thing, Bree. This isn't about evidence. It's about Jason making one last play. He's going to try to rattle you, make you doubt yourself, maybe even confess to something you didn't do. Don't engage. Let him talk. I need to hear what he says when he thinks he's got nothing left to lose. The drive was silent. Pre-dawn light painted the sky gray. At the detention center, Ramirez met us in a stark interview room, sterile, concrete, one-way glass. "He's agitated," she told Dad. "Keeps demanding to see his wife alone. Kincaid's with him, but I made it clear, no private visits. This is a courtesy. Mr. Callahan, don't make me regret it. Wouldn't dream of it." "Agent Ramirez," Dad said, settling into a chair. He nodded at the glass. "He in there?" "Waiting." Ramirez confirmed. "We're patched into the audio. You'll hear everything. Say nothing unless I give the signal." Minutes later, Jason was led in orange jumpsuit, shackles, hair shorn to stubble. He looked smaller, defeated. Kincaid sat beside him, looking bored. Jason's eyes darted around the room, landing on the speaker grill in the ceiling. He knew we were listening. "Bree?" he called out, his voice raspy. "Baby, you there?" Dad's hand rested on my knee. "Steady." Kincaid leaned into the mic. "Mrs. Davison, my client wishes to discuss the disposition of certain marital assets, specifically the property at 141 Overlook Drive. He maintains that you jointly agreed to leverage it for business purposes, and therefore—" "Shut up, Paul!" Jason snapped. He leaned forward, chains rattling. "Bree, listen to me. I know you're there. I know your old man's got you hiding. But you need to hear this. That money Chloe got, it wasn't from the clients. It was from our account, yours and mine. I can prove it. Bank statements, signatures. You were there when I signed the withdrawal slips. Bree, remember? Last month, at the Greenwich branch, you were wearing that blue scarf." Dad's fingers tightened on my knee. A lie, a blatant one. I hadn't been to the Greenwich branch in 6 months. "See?" Jason pressed, mistaking my silence for uncertainty. "She remembers. Bree, if you tell them that, they'll have to drop the worst charges. It becomes a civil matter. We can settle. I'll take the fall for the rest. But you gotta say we did it together. For the house. For us." Kincaid sighed. "Jason, this is not the strategy we discussed." "Screw the strategy," Jason roared. "She's my wife. She owes me." He turned back to the ceiling. "Bree, don't let them turn you against me. Your dad's filling your head with cop lies. He always hated me. Since day one. Remember our wedding? He didn't even toast. Just sat there, judging. He wants me gone so he can control you. Don't let him." Dad's expression didn't change, but his eyes turned to flint. He leaned toward the mic. "Agent Ramirez, patch me in. One sentence." Ramirez hesitated, then nodded. Dad's voice, amplified, filled the interrogation room. "Jason, shut your mouth." Jason jerked back, chains clanking. "Callahan, you son of a... You think this is about the house?" Dad's voice was lethally quiet. "About the money? About Bree? Boy, you're dumber than I thought." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "I've been investigating you for 6 months. Not for Bree. For the feds." The room went dead silent. Even Kincaid straightened. Dad continued, his words deliberate. The SEC flagged irregularities in your firm's books in July. Sloppy entries, unusual cash flows. They handed it to the FBI, white-collar unit. But I saw the patterns, the timing, the amounts, the destinations, cartel money, laundered through your clients' accounts. So I volunteered. Retired detective, impartial observer. I watched you. I listened. I waited. And Christmas night, that was just the cherry on top. Your little investment scheme isn't just embezzlement. Jason, it's RICO. It's conspiracy. It's treason against the United States. Jason's face lost all color. You're lying. Am I? Dad's chuckle was devoid of humor. Check the logs. Agent Ramirez's case number is 22-4871 cartel. Ring any bells? The FBI isn't just here for your petty theft. Boy, they're here for the pipeline. The one you built between Davison Capital and the Medellin network. You're not going to prison, Jason. You're going to a federal hole so deep, so dark, they'll forget your name before you finish your first sentence. And when they're done with you, the Bureau de Alcohol, Tabaco, Armas y Explosivos in Colombia has a few questions of their own. Extradition's a bitch, isn't it? Jason started shaking violently. No, that's not. I was just moving money. I didn't know about any cartels. Chloe, she set me up. Ask her. She'll tell you. Chloe's already told us everything. Dad said, including how you bragged about using your cop father-in-law as a patsy. How you figured if anyone got suspicious, you'd point the finger at me. Smart plan. Too bad you picked a cop who doesn't stay patsy for long. Kincaid was on his feet. Mr. Callahan, this is outrageous. My client never mentioned. He didn't have to. Dad cut him off. His laptop did. The encrypted folder labeled BC stands for Brianna's Fall Guy. Cute, right? He'd been documenting evidence of her involvement for months. Photos of her signing checks for her own accounts. Emails he drafted in her name, never sent. He was building a frame job. Counselor, and he was almost ready to spring it. Until Christmas night. Until he got sloppy. Until he let his horse sleep in my daughter's bed. Jason slumped forward, forehead hitting the metal table. A low moan escaped him. It's over, it's all over. It was over the second you walked into that bedroom with her. Dad said, you crossed a line no man crosses in front of me. And now you're going to spend the rest of your miserable life remembering that mistake. Every time you close your eyes, you'll see that bed, and you'll know it's the last decent thing you ever had. And you burned it. Dad nodded at Ramirez. She cut the audio feed. The sudden silence was deafening. Is that true? I whispered. About the cartel? The investigation? Dad looked at me, his face softening just a fraction. Every word. I couldn't tell you. Bree, need to know. And you needed to be able to look surprised when he confessed, which he just did. Ramirez got enough to bury him under the Patriot Act alone. The FBI, they knew about Christmas. They knew about the affair. Dad said, I told Ramirez the night I called her. Told her it was leverage. She agreed. Jason's ego was always his weakest point. Flaunting her in your bed? That was the final nail. Proved he wasn't just a thief, he was reckless. Uncontrollable. Exactly what a RICO prosecutor needs to show pattern of behavior. I leaned back, absorbing it. The layers, the planning. My father, the retired detective, had been 10 steps ahead of everyone, including me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you had to be clean. Kid, he said simply. No prior knowledge. No suspicion. Just a betrayed wife. If I had told you, you might have acted differently. Tipped him off. And he'd still be out there, laundering blood money. He paused. You did good. Better than good. You were the perfect silent witness. Ramirez re-entered. Well, that was productive. Mr. Davison's lawyered up again. But it won't matter. That recording, it's a confession to conspiracy, obstruction, and perjury. We'll have the indictment by noon. And Mr. Callahan, the Bureau thanks you. Consider this a formal commendation." She handed him a sealed envelope. Dad took it, tucking it away without looking. "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it for her." He nodded at me. As we left the detention center, dawn was breaking. The sky was a violent shade of pink and orange. Like a bruise healing, Dad walked me to the car, then stopped, looking back at the gray building. "You know," he said quietly, "your mother always said I held grudges too long. Maybe she was right. But some things, some lines, you don't cross them. Not with my daughter. Not on Christmas." He turned to me. "It's done, Bree. Really done. You can go home now. Not the house in Greenwich. That's evidence for a while yet. But your home. Your life. It's yours again." I looked at him. This man who'd dismantled a criminal empire with a legal pad and a recorder. Who'd protected me without ever asking for thanks. "What about you? Dad, where's your home?" He smiled then. "A real one. Wherever you are. Kid, now get in the car. Your mother's making pancakes." And this time, no interruptions. We drove away, leaving the federal building behind. Jason Davison was a ghost. Chloe Reed was a footnote. And I was free. Truly free. The track marks led to the wolf. And the wolf was caged. But the hunter? The hunter was going home. And as we merged onto I-95, the sun finally broke through the clouds. Dad reached over, turned up the radio, Johnny Cash. "Ring of Fire." He started humming along, off-key and unconcerned. I closed my eyes, leaning back against the seat. For the first time in a year, I didn't feel like looking over my shoulder. The reckoning was over, and I'd survived.